Anything else you want to add, Eli?
Man, no, I appreciate what you guys are doing. I think this is awesome. I know we didn't touch on it too much, but the mental health aspect that you guys had touched on before, and some of your other stuff, it definitely is. Excuse me, was definitely something that I think what you guys doing this. We had discussed after watching them with some of those guys. That you guys are doing a good mix of like trying to. How do we tie this to the fire service? But how do we also just make it about, the talking and the mental health and the content or whatever? So I think what you guys are doing is awesome, and hopefully y'all can continue to do that and see what works.
Do you have anything to add to the mental health side?
Lean on your guys. I will say that. My guys at the station, you brought up Jeremy Owens. That was a big thing for the guys at our station. I had met him a handful of times, worked with him a handful of times, trained with him a handful of times. He's a great guy. He had even asked me several times about joining. Oh, when are you going to join out here and ocean rescue and stuff? And hey, I didn't, but it's a great guy, And mental health issue, I've seen it in my family. It's huge. Myself, what we consider a mental health issue. I think most people are stuck on the stigma of being schizophrenic and just full on, delusions and hallucinations, and that's not the case. And I get that there is that negative stigma still attached to it. I also think that it's very difficult. And I think you probably brought this up on one of your previous podcasts. Was that we have this tendency to create a problem where there's not a problem, or feel we're going to create a problem where there's not a problem if we talk. I'm not a big proponent of, I'm not a very physically emotional guy. I don't. And I think that, unfortunately, when it comes to mental health, almost everyone, especially in the fire service or EMS, we're extremists. We think we either have to be all about mental health and, I need to debrief after every call, or just there's not a problem. We're just ignoring this, and that's something that slowly, I think that's where I'm at now in my journey at 30 years and 17 years with my wife is I have fixed a lot of the physical. I have fixed a lot, better shape physically. I have fixed a lot of the, our financial situation, our house, on the outside, Eli's fixed a lot. But I get what my wife says now, 17 years in, and now I've added a high-stress job like what we have. Is Eli fixing the inside? And so that is something that has been new to me probably this year more than ever is, do you have any sort of issues that you may want to think about, that you may want to discuss? Communication, mental health does not necessarily just mean it's one of those words to me that's like diversity. People think diversity and we try to oversimplify it and say, oh no, that means LGBT, black, white, Hispanic. That's superficial diversity, right. Sure, but that's not the epitome of what diversity is. Same with mental illness. Yeah, sure, mental illness is schizophrenia and OCD and this and but that's again the surface. That's maybe some that you see superficially, but there's a lot that's encompassed in there that again kind of falls back on you as a person to say, this is something I deal with. I need to talk to somebody. I need to, and not that you have to talk to everybody, but find somebody. For me personally, and hopefully they don't mind, but my wife is a big one. I'll give her that. I've always told her everything. But Captain Lamb at the station, I mean, never seen a grown man cry, and I've seen Captain Lamb tear up. Not that I've seen him cry, but like I could talk to that guy almost about anything,
Mm-hmm.
and he does. Like he'll tell you this, he'll tell that, and I think that's true of all the guys there. Cat Moon's the same way. There's certain things that I've gone and talked to him about, and he can give you this guidance, and they all do. They all have their own way of doing it, but for some reason with like Captain Lamb, as far as anything that's bothering me mentally, whether it's like a relationship thing, whatever, he's one of those people that it's hard to explain. He's not necessarily trying to solve your problem, but he's willing to listen and then kind of
Empathy.
and, yeah,
Empathy.
And then the best part I think too is that like he's helped me with like just financial stuff. He's helped me with just someone to talk to, marriage advice, this and the other, because I look at certain people and what they do, and I think Captain Lamb is probably one of the most, and all our guys are family guys, I'll give them that, but Captain Lamb is probably one of the most that is very open about the fact that, hey, my family's first, and this and the other, and shows it, and so he's been a big one for me to go to with stuff like that. And so that mental health aspect, I view that as part of my mental health, checking it, that am I in a good place now? Am I not in a good place? My wife, when we first started to do the whole, all right, you're in a good place, but there's an issue. She used to tell me, like, you're slipping into, you're in a dark place is what she would tell me. You're in a dark place. You need to get out of it. And so I would tell her, it was like, I got slipping into darkness tattooed in my chest just so that, like, I can stare in the mirror and be like, all right, where am I at today? Well, what's going on? Because it's not, the mental health thing is not it's not what people think. Not everyone who has mental health issues thinking of suicide. Not everyone who has mental health issues thinking of hurting someone or hurting themselves. But mental health issues, so if you're not willing to acknowledge it, can take you down some scary roads, and unfortunately you're there before you realize you're there. And so, like, with the whole, Jeremy Owens thing at our station, that hit that station pretty hard with those guys, because they love that guy. And as I said earlier, when something disrupts that function of a house, you feel compelled to, all right, how do I fix this? What do I do? And so, especially when it's one of you, he's hurt, so it's going to be more up to me to kind of pick this up. So that's my big thing with the mental health, man, is definitely continue to push it. I think you guys touched some on it in the past, and I think that's good. I'm not necessarily saying that they all need to be
sure
about that, but I definitely think it is, therapeutic in what you guys are doing. The talking about your experience with your son and all that, and then your experience with your friend. I think these podcasts are good. Unfortunately, firefighters we're very critical of each other. We're very, quick to knock something just as fast as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you guys are doing is really good, because it is helping people to see that they can relate, right? Dude, this is not me crying for the record.
No, yeah.
I swallowed something, a bug or something.
You say what you want.
Yeah.
The setting has a tendency to bring that out.
Yeah. I think it's all the vape smoke.
That was probably allergic reaction. I'm gonna run an idea by both of you, and while I got you here, I want your input. Thinking about you're saying we want to solve, like, your boys in the house are hurting, and I've had similar thoughts, and I knew Jeremy, and I know where I've been, so I was trying to truly put myself in his shoes. So there's fears around, like, when you can't get your head squared away. If I go and tell the wrong person, they're going to take my job away.
Yeah,
they're going to take my kids away. You know what I mean? There's legitimate, like, I can't let anybody know that I feel the way I feel.
Yep.
We surely can agree that as a society we got to change that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that, like, on one side, if I go to admit somebody, like, man, I'm feeling this way, and they ask me a few questions. Have you guys ever done like mental health training, like what's that term, King, for
The peer support.
Yep, in peer support they had a term for it, a mental health first aider, mental health first aider. In that training, they tell you if somebody tells you that they want to harm themselves, you have to go and tell somebody. I disagree. You know what I mean? So it boils down to a relationship. So if I felt strongly enough about you or you to come and say, "Hey, man, this is going on or this is going on," and I'm in a bad way, right? That's between us. And
Absolutely.
I'm asking you for help. I'm not telling you that I'm about to go do this. This is me expressing a need for help. And I think there's room to grow as far as how we respond to those conversations. And we got to make those conversations accessible, But that's getting to be the hard part. Like in right now in our department, we've got some movement, which is a good thing in addressing mental health stuff. I've noticed a trend that it's don't. I'm hearing a whole bunch of you can't do this and you can't do that. That worries me. I'm like, all right, haven't we spent enough time with the you can't do this and that?
Yep.
What can we do? Like, how do we make that conversation more normal or more acceptable? So if I come to Eli, or if I came to somebody in your firehouse and expressed thought, what is it? What do you think we can do to create that environment that somebody would feel comfortable enough? Do you have any? I'm not saying there's an answer. Like, I'm not putting it on you that you've got to give me an answer, but
I've got a perspective on it.
Sure.
If you have one, you can go first if you would like.
My take on that is, one, I think you guys already are just, with this, right? So I don't think there's any one thing that can be done. There's a lot of things because we're and whether this is the fire service, whether this is just a cultural thing in America, whether this is just, what this is that causes mental illness to be the stigma that it is. One thing that I can think, if we're speaking on the fire service and the house, is that it doesn't have to be as formal as people believe it has to be. It does not have to be a therapist. It does not have to be you reclined on a couch talking about when you were 2 years old and you saw dad hit mom, and that's a big thing for me. It's finding that person that you said, one, that you can relate to, sympathetic, right? And then two, it's being or trying to be that person who's letting others know, hey, I'm willing to empathize with you, like Captain Lamb or Captain Moon or whatever. Captain Moon's gone through it with his cancer thing. He opened up himself and kind of, when we were going through that whole thing with my kid and, would talk to me and stuff like that. So, and it's not just that it was Captain Lamb or Captain Moon or it has to be a captain, but whether it was Tyler or Sal or Andy or Mooney, I can look back with anyone who I was ever with and think of times where they got out of their comfort zone to come to me and say, hey, not saying there's a problem, but, if you ever want to talk about this or you want to talk about that, and making sure that we're doing that with each other within our house. I can't talk. I'm not a chief. I'm not. So as a department, that's a hard gamut. But within a house, if we do that for each other, whether it's our own house at home with our spouse or with our kids, hey, do you want to talk? Or whether it's at the firehouse, it's showing that, one, sometimes you're going to be the one that someone needs to come to. And are you showing that you're open enough to be that kind of person, And then two, I've also learned that people won't generally come to you if you're not a person that goes to other people, So if you're willing to recognize that, because I've gone to Captain Lime a lot, and, so I like to believe, fortunately, I'm going to him because I feel like he does have his shit together. And I like to believe that if he needed to come to me in reverse, there was something.
Right.
That he was like, well, damn, Eli's come to me like 30 times. Maybe he's fine with talking about shit. Let me go talk to him and ask him this. When he becomes a grandparent, and I've been a grandparent now for 18 years, and he's like, hey,
Yeah.
this happened, how do I deal with this? And, and maybe I'll be able to offer him some advice that he knows nothing about. So keeping that open and doing that, I think, is going to be the single biggest thing that will help individuals within our fire service. It is being open, because I think I get just as much, resolution from doing this, drinking beer, talking, as I would imagine I would get from going to sit on a doctor's couch and pay him $600 at the end of that meeting, and
Right.
Say the exact same thing as he writes it all down. I like to think, anyways. But
Have you ever gone to ask or wanted to ask somebody like, hey, is there something going on, but you didn't because you don't want to offend somebody? You know what I mean?
Funny that you asked that. I did, and I didn't do it, and I felt really, really bad about it. So I was walking out of the store, because this was a complete stranger.
Mm-hmm.
And they had mentioned, what was it? The lady at the register told the lady, she was clearly having a bad day, and she was, I don't know what had happened with her car or something, but anyway, she finally gets everything wrapped up. She starts to walk out, and the lady tells her, have a good day. I hope your day gets better or something. She's like, no, it won't. It's time for it all to end. And just walked out. And I was like, I'm sitting here, like, got caught up with the lady because I'm paying for my stuff, and she's walking out, and I'm just thinking, you should probably really just go, just say, hey, I hope you're okay. I hope everything's fine. And I didn't. I did feel bad, because by the time I got out to the parking lot, she was like already driving out. And at that point, I have pretty much told myself, like, look, if anyone ever just looks like they're having a bad day, just doesn't matter who they are, if you know them or not, just see if there's anything you can do to make it better. And I think because of that too, though, it's probably going to be even more so at work. Like, I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and he had mentioned a couple of times, a couple of things that concerned me. And I told him, I was like, look, man, I love you. But I seriously have to ask at this point, and from here we can move on after you answer. But you've said two things to me, and we've been talking about 2020, how hard it is, and this and the other. And you've said a couple of times something that would indicate to me that I wish this would all end. I wish just everything was over. I've thought about packing my shit and just leaving. And are you serious? Like, do you just? I just need to hear directly, because I'm a very direct person sometimes, because I can't empathize. And I'm like, just, you're not going to hurt yourself, right? You're not feeling this kind of way, right? And then he's like, no. I was like, all right. And he's a hugger, so then he gave me a hug, but I don't hug.
I've never been offended by somebody checking on me.
Yeah.
And I think, I guess I could have answered my own question, but I wanted to hear it. So many of us think that, man, if I ask that, I'm gonna look a certain way, or I'm gonna piss them off, or whatever.
And
they're gonna wonder why are they asking me?
Yeah.
That, yeah. Sure.
Even if you ask, and you're like, because I just need to hear you say.
Yeah.
Maybe to communicating, I'm asking because I'm concerned about you. If you feel any certain way, just give me a call later.
Yep.
Or if you ever feeling this way, ring my phone. I think that's a good way to make it normal. And,
Absolutely.
And I hope people hear that it's okay to. I've never been offended by somebody asking me if I'm okay.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I've kind of gotten out of my shell about asking people anything like that is that when we went to Jeremy's thing, and I'll reference him because this is probably one of the most recent ones, is how many of them, said, how many people said, I talked to him and I didn't ask him, or I didn't. I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of something, if I didn't ask someone and something did happen, and then thinking, well, damn, why didn't I ask? At least then, if you ask, you're not going to feel, the best, but you're not going to feel as bad as you could, knowing that you could have asked. And maybe asking isn't going to make a difference, but it's going to make a difference for me. And,
right.
And
we're not always going to perceive the time to ask.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
if you feel it, then just ask something.
Exactly. Yeah. So no, I definitely the mental health thing, man, it has not always been a big concern for me. I don't think that, like you said, that stigma, that scare, that fear of, am I going to lose my job? Is this going to affect me, or am I going to get pulled in somewhere? But now, I definitely think it's something that's way more real than we gave it credit for. I don't think we're going to leave every bad call. That was one thing I was trying to tell a buddy of mine, because he had asked me, about like calls and stuff like that, as a lot of people do. And so, man, I think a lot of people think that we're going to have these mental issues because of the horrible, and that's how they describe the horrible things we see. And I said, man, we don't see people sit down these days to watch gore and horror movies and decapitation. People sit down to watch what we're liable to go to in a day's time. So it's not the gore that kills people. It's not the gore that, in my opinion, for Eli, it's not the gore and the things that you're going to see that are in themselves going to make you have these issues. What's going to make you have these issues is if you're not acknowledging that this has affected me, or, this was a baby and I have a baby at home. And I think you guys had mentioned about how you guys deal with, calls, and, if there's something that that this is probably going to be more traumatic for this person than this person, being proactive in that sense are the things that need to continue to be done in all the houses to make sure that we don't end up, because again, going to, a young woman that, has just died may not be as traumatic in itself to someone who has no connection to a young woman. Right. So it's not the scene. It's not the person. It's me.
The relatability.
Exactly. Is that the one that needs to be? And then whether or not I'm going to talk to him, or I'm going to go to him and say, hey, Eli just pulled a baby out of here and he's got a grandbaby at home, and let's go talk to him. That I think is what's going to play that huge factor in seeing that stabilization in our mental health as a fire service. That way, when I go out to drink, I know I'm just going out to drink and laugh and have a good time, and I'm not going to end up at the end of it bawling and crying because I've held all this in, and this is when Eli wants to let it out.
Sure. My perspective on the whole thing, I commend the fire service as a whole for taking the focus on this, because I believe it is an important issue. However, the societal approach to it outside of the fire service, where we have to be seeing a therapist, we have to be doing that, may not be the most proactive approach to it. I believe, just like Hibben said in his interview, the senior people, whether they be an officer, whether they be a backstep man, whether they be a driver, whatever they are, the senior man in the firehouse, he needs to take up the reins and understand the tempo of and the climate of his firehouse. He knows his people. He knows how things are supposed to operate. So I charge all of the senior men in their firehouses to check the mental hygiene of their men, the being proactive, the being, to know what calls are going to affect what type of person. Not mental health, I don't want to go into that, but the mental hygiene. You don't brush your teeth when you get a cavity. You brush your teeth to prevent a cavity. So the mental hygiene, to keep up with the emotional state of his firehouse, is his responsibility to prevent the therapy session. And it all can be done. The therapy session may be needed for some people, but I would say that for the vast majority of us type A people, this problem can be fixed before it gets there, just by the senior men understanding and taking that responsibility, saying, hey, this guy acts off today. Why? Whether it be a guy who's his second day on the fire service or his officer, rank doesn't matter. Rank does not show bias to who's having issues with what. So the ability to perceive things that are off. That's like I said, that's something I charge the senior men in the house
Sure.
to kind of understand that and to take care of that. It's something that we can all do as a group, as a fire service, and in our own houses together. But for him to understand the climate of his people, that's a big part, and I think it can be stopped way before it gets to the therapy session. Like I said, I'm not taking anything back from the fire service trying to be proactive and getting therapists and all that kind of stuff. But maybe we need to put some responsibility a little more on the people who are around each other all the time.
Sure. But
And
I
like
think
said,
that falls on us
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said,
as a whole, not just the senior man at the
Sure.
house or the captain.
Sure.
Because what if Cap does come to me and I'm like, wait, what? You think I got a problem? I just saw you yell at your wife on the phone. You gonna tell me that I got a
Right.
problem because I said this about my wife?
And you're going to have people
I agree with you
like
100%.
that.
Now, the one thing that I would like to interject in yours, and I don't know if you realize you mentioned this, but I've noticed you've done this with me as well. I noticed she said this, or I noticed she said this. So I noticed you said this quite a bit,
Good.
and it's the therapy. So how do you know it's needed? How do you know it's not? How do you know, therapy is a big thing for me. Now, I'm not, this has been the year for Eli. We're like, all right, mental health. Let's start to figure some of this stuff out mental health wise. And I've gone to a therapy session. And I'm going to tell you right now, I like it, and there's some things that I don't like about it. Just plain and simple. There's some things I don't like about it. There's some things that, sure, I like about it. One of the things I do like about it is there's things that, even though we relate, Captain, and we often say, well, I don't want to go talk to a therapist because they're not a firefighter. They don't know what I go through. But not everything that we're dealing with is because we're a firefighter. It's tied because we've done what you asked about earlier. How much of my life have I connected with being a firefighter? But just because you go in there doesn't mean that what you're going to talk about is what you've seen on a fire scene. Now, if you're the kind of person, in my opinion, that says that right off the bat, then sure, maybe you do have some fire-related issues that you're not addressing. My therapy stuff has nothing to do with being a firefighter. It has nothing to do. Sure, it has something to do with who I am and who I have become because I'm a firefighter, and because I'm a father, and because I'm a parent. And, I think a good therapist can help you tie all those things. But people are scared of therapy like it is some voodoo witch doctor that's going to get in your head and screw it all up. And I think for a long time I was too. But I know guys that say, well, I don't need therapy. I don't need this. I don't need that. And I'm thinking, first, therapy is a very broad term. What is therapeutic and what is considered therapy is a very broad term. And we try to generalize into this one thing. Therapy is me talking to someone and telling them my problems, and I don't want to do that. Fine. I don't need that, is what you hear a lot. You could benefit from some damn family therapy. I'm going to tell you right now, because you've had 2 divorces and you're on divorce number 3, but you don't think you need therapy?
Right.
You don't think you could benefit from an actual marriage counselor or therapist helping you and your partner figure out what's going on? That is so obvious that you need therapy. But that's also what we do as firefighters. We like to believe, I don't need therapy. Therapy's for so-and-so. I'm not saying you need it, but could you benefit from it? Probably. So why not try it? Why change the oil in your car? Why, does it need it right now? No. It's burnt motor oil. There's still oil in it, but it's going to be better if I go ahead and change it and put new good oil. And so you've mentioned therapy, you mentioned the need. I don't see anything wrong with going to a therapist before the need arises if you think it's going to benefit you, because these are trained professionals like us. Do I want a therapist when I'm in the middle of a scene, trying to resuscitate a 2-year-old? No, absolutely not. I don't want a therapist coming to try to do it. I want a paramedic. I want, a doctor. I want, we show up with our basics and we're offering something. But if I'm in the middle of something, I'm going through issues with my wife. I don't need another firefighter who's gone through 3 divorces who tells me I don't need therapy. I need a beer and a drink, and because that's how we cope. I don't need you to tell me that. Now, there may be some firefighters who have gone through a divorce and they were self-aware and knew that they needed to fix some things, and they know, and those firefighters are going to be the ones to sit down with me and say, hey, well, you have this issue, this is what I can offer from my personal experience. But a therapist, a marriage and counseling therapist, not just a general therapist, but the more detailed you can get, they're going to offer you coping mechanisms. They're going to offer you skills so that it never becomes a need to be in that office. That's one of the first things that therapist said to me when I went, was like, so how often do you want to do this? I don't know. You're the professional. I'm coming to you for answers and questions because I don't know why I'm even here. I'm here because, people think I have a problem, or, I'm too outspoken, or I'm upset, or I'm this, or I'm that. So you tell me why I'm here and how often I need to come see you. That's how I view this with you as a therapist. And she was just very blunt. She was like, well, how often you need to be here, one, depends on you. If this benefited you, if you took anything away from this, if you want to come every week, come every week. If you don't come every 2 weeks, come every 2 weeks. If you don't come once a month, if you want to come once a year, come once a year. It's up to you. And that goes back to the self-aware. And I like that because, as I've started with, Eli, I'm all for if you're making it my responsibility, if I control this. And I think people don't understand that about therapists. Therapists, they're there to just help you, get through stuff. They're going to offer you advice. They're not going to fix you or try to change anything mentally about you. But to me, therapy is, if you're going to therapy when you need it, it's great. But what's the expression of the fire service? You're behind the 8 ball.
Right.
You should have been there before you needed it. You should have been doing this therapeutically at the fire station, talking to someone, seeking someone out, because you did have that one bad day. Let me talk to somebody. You don't go to therapy because you need it. You go because it's going to make you a better person. It's going to make you a better husband. It's going to make you a better father. It's going to bring something beneficial to you. And then when you go, some people put more miles on their tires than others. You don't need to go every day. You don't need to go every other week. And you don't need to go, you don't need to change your tires every year. Sure, if you met the miles on those tires, and by all means change them. And if that was in 3 months, then go in 3 months and get them changed. But don't wait till there's a need. That's a big thing for me, is don't wait till there's a need to pull Captain aside and talk to him or.
Yeah. Your reference of timing, as far as do you need therapy when you're in the middle of this deal, is key for me. And touching on bringing that into what you said, I can tell you from personal experience, when you're in a thick part of darkness, or there were times that I was not okay to want to talk. If somebody had asked me or pressed in on me, if they had asked one time, then it would have been okay. But if they had kind of like been a little more forceful of, well, you've done this and that, it would have been a pretty stiff elbow.
Yeah.
There were parts of it. And then, but if I know, like if you had come and asked me at one of those times and just gave me an inquiry, and then, okay, well, hey, hit me up if you ever need something. Then, a day later or 45 minutes later or whatever it was, then I would have reached back. So I agree with some of what you said, but part of that, the sentiment of you have to, I think that may be a little risky. It might be just a little bit too far. There's somewhere we're going to find in the middle, I believe. But you can't be too forceful with the questioning.
And even if it is that small thing, man, they might say no to me, but that might have been enough for them to say, all right, well, I don't really get along with Eli, so I'm going to tell him no. But you know what? I like Matt. Me and Matt have a history. And go see what Matt thinks. If this guy thinks I have an issue, then yeah. So I'm not saying you're going to get a positive response every time. I'm not. Yeah. I'm just saying it's going to take the pressure off of Eli if I feel you have a problem to say, hey, man, did you ever tell him? Because I'm also bad for that. The guys I ask you, like, probably especially with Sal, like, hey, man, is everything good? Yeah. Then I'll ask like 30 minutes, like, hey, you good? Is everything all right? It's like, yes, well, Captain Combo one time, because Captain Combo's quiet. All you get out of Captain Combo, and that means, all right, I need you to go take out trash. I need you to finish checking off the rig. I need you. Anything else, Captain? breakfast. All right. So, but I did that with him one time. Like early on, I can remember like he was the master firefighter, and he's I'm sure you're talking about. You all right? You know, is everything good? You're quiet. Da, da, da. He's like he lost it for a second. I think, yes, I'm fine. Why? I don't talk all the time like you do. Okay, I don't need to talk all the time. I'm fine. I'm not upset. I'm not angry. You sound like my wife. I was like,
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So okay, all right, good enough. And so I learned that too. Yeah, don't overpoke, but definitely they know that I'm watching. They know that something's wrong, and they want to talk about it. We can.
Sure,
and that's good enough for me.
Sure, I want to thank you for checking my perspective on the whole thing. I appreciate that, and I guess it could seem one-sided.
Sure.
Whereas I feel, a lot of these mental health things could be handled inside. However, I think a lot of the fire department related issues can be handled inside.
Sure.
If you have outside issues, then I don't necessarily think, and I don't want to portray that I think that firemen have the answer for that, because we don't by any means. Personal issues in the other third of your life needs to be that needs to be addressed elsewhere. If you have somebody close enough in the fire service to take care of that, then that's fine. But thank you for the checking.
But on that
and the
note, let
clarity.
me ask you this though: as a firefighter, if a chief comes to you and say, "Hey, I think you need to go to therapy," how many of them are going to want it? How many of them are going to be upset that they were told, "Hey, we're keeping this in house, but we need you to talk to so and so"? They're not going to like it. This is us, and that's why I think it comes back to us to realize our strengths, our weaknesses, where there is something we could benefit from, not necessarily a need. We want to address stuff like that before it's a need, but I don't think there's that perfect answer. I appreciate what you're saying though about like trying to make sure that we're keeping stuff within house and that our senior guys are paying. But we got to start with ourselves, because we try to bucket all the time, and we try to find an excuse to, if we're forced to go to some sort of therapy count. Like I've heard it countless times. How many guys complain? Oh yeah, stress to be blah 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 blah. And 9 times out of 10, those are guys that probably could benefit from it.
Sure.
That's one thing I try to tell people is, I'm not going to tell you need something, but you might could benefit from this. You might could benefit from this. I know I've been told a lot. I've been told you need, and I'm probably a lot quicker to buck that and do that stiff elbow you were talking about. But when you have guys that are good, like you said, if those senior guys are good at what they do, hey, you could benefit from this. And then it becomes more palatable.
Maybe it's maybe it's not the service or the need itself, but maybe the way it's being delivered.
Sure. Absolutely.
So maybe that's our gateway into making this more of a acceptable thing within our culture, is maybe the delivery methods versus the actual message itself.
Absolutely. Again, thank you guys. This is awesome.
Yeah. Eli,
All
it's been
the
a pleasure.
best. Yep.
It's been a pleasure.
Let me know when you want a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.